Tonight I am on the water. With riding on it. If I look beat up, it's because I'm kind of beat up. What happened was, I recorded this piece 2 days ago, and then I deleted it instead of transferring it. You know, it happens. Let's do it again, get another go. And I just done 7 rounds, 7 5-minute rounds, jiu-jitsu. Well, I say jiu-jitsu, getting smashed by 2 of the lads are 90 kilos. And Kieran. So yeah, it's great rolling again. I think my bag work's got a lot faster, and that's down to the lifting. Because even when I used to lift, you know, I used to do the typical lifting of bench press or curls. Everything's just slow, not explosive, you know. And with the Olympic lifting, I'm not used to explosion too much, because I tend to just do steady state a lot of the time. And now I'm forced into getting that speed, and I think it's starting to transition into the bag, and I think I'm getting better, which is great, because I'm doing it a long time, and most people get worse, but I think I'm improving. I'm happy. I was happy to see it, because usually you look at it and think, "Who's that fucking slow, weird looking dude?" And then you realise it's you. I put a timer on this because I bought another camera, and it's the XT30 Fuji. This is an XH1 Fuji. I like them. I think they're nice. And I wanted a second camera for doing the Astro, and it takes a lovely photograph of the stars because of the sensor. Anyway, I don't want to bore you. It takes in more colour of the stars. But this new camera's got a 15-minute time limit, so I'm going to have to condense these. Or maybe just keep doing it on this, I don't know, whatever. So what I wanted to talk to you about is the first time I ever quit my job, and what it meant, and where it got me. I wanted to ride the Tour de France. I wanted to be a pro bike rider. Never made it. That's the short story. The long story is, didn't matter. I gave it a go. I gave it my best shot, and at least I can sleep with myself and know that I tried, I did, and I just came up short. But I can live with that. At least I gave it a fucking best go I could do. I just went full time, all in. So what happened was, I was working for a guy called Seamus McGuire, and he had a company called Ashdale. I think he was a bit of a fucking fly-by night. They used to call him Arthur Daly. There used to be a TV show called Miner back in the 70s, and this con man called Arthur Daly had this miner that looked after him, because he was always getting himself in the shit, and we used to call this dude Arthur Daly. He used to manage the classic cinema at one stage, and then my folks knew him, and then I got a job there spraying furniture, spraying the paint. What we used to do was make kitchen units and bedroom units, and then we also used to do shop fitting, which is, if you go into a shop, like say a clothes shop, and you see the clothes are hanging on the walls, but they're also hanging on freestanding units. They're called gondolas, and they're made by somebody. So we used to manufacture them, and I used to spray them. And then you put the hangers on, you get your clothes, but you don't even notice when you're in a shop. But there's an industry in making those things. So I had my little spray booth, and I used to love spraying furniture. Now I knew it was super bad for you, and I used to love coming in the morning and just feeling the finish, the smooth finish on a wardrobe door. You know, just that gloss. Yeah, loved it. But I knew I couldn't do it for too long. I did it for about, I think, 1.5 years or 2 years maybe. So I'd gone skiing to Moorseen with John Sheen, my next door neighbour, and Julian Dalby, the doc himself. And it was the first time I hung out with Jules. And he was going to ride, he used to ride in France at the time. So if you wanted to be a pro bike rider, The deal was you went to France, got a ride on a team, hopefully got some good results, someone would see you, get a first cat license, and then you turn pro. That was the basis of it. So you'd have to go to France. But Jules, as being Jules, went the alternative view, which was he rode in France for a team called Wascal, and then they got him a ride on a team in Guadeloupe. And Guadeloupe is a French island in the Caribbean, but it's France. It's still part of France. So it's the same system of bike riding. And he was going over. He'd already been over with Johnny the year before. And when we were skiing, I said to him before he left, I said, listen, I'd love if the guys would take one more foreign rider. I'd pay for my flight over and get me on the team, you know. So I got a letter back about, I kind of forgot about it. I got this handwritten letter about a month after he'd gone to say, if you pay for your flight, the team will look after you when you get here. So the next morning I went into work, went into Seamus's office and said, Seamus, I'm quitting today. I'm done. I'm going to ride a bike in Guadeloupe. I didn't even know where it was, to be honest with you, because there was no internet then. You couldn't just like Google it. You'd have to go to the library and get a book out that was written 20 years before. And I went into Dawson Street. There was a travel agent. Actually, I found the letter from Jules, and I found the receipt, and I paid €760. 740 euros for a ticket from Dublin to Paris, Paris to Guadeloupe, and I had 60 quid left in my pocket to my name, and I packed up my bike and packed up my suitcase and got on an Aer Lingus flight to Paris. And I always remember getting on the flight and I was sitting beside this Italian guy, and I generally don't talk to people on flights. I started yapping this guy, is telling him I'm going to Guadeloupe and telling him I was riding for a team. He'd been there by chance, and he was saying it was amazing, and there was part of the island where it's these people, they call them shabbians. They're a mixture between black, white and native Caribbean people, and they've green eyes and sallow skin, and we just had this like great conversation. I was so excited to be going, you know. And before that, the most I'd ever done was go on a beer holiday to Santa Ponsa with my mates, you know. So it was a big trip. And when the flight landed in Paris, there was this dude behind me. Must have been in his 40s. For me, when I was like 19, he was ancient, you know. And he said to me, listen, I overheard your conversation. I'd just like to say, I wish when I was your age, I would have done something like that. And I always remembered it, you know. And he goes, really have a great time, you know. And that was it. And then got into Paris and queued up to get my ticket for the flight to Guadeloupe. And they upgraded me to first class. Now, I didn't know I was in first class till I got in. I was up the front of the plane and you had all this space. And there was a dude sitting beside me. And he was big stocky guy. And he was reading this, never said a word. He was reading this like a comic book, like with little squares in it, and each of those squares had like an illustration, black and white illustration of at the time I didn't know what it was, but it was bondage. Some guy in a gimp suit and another guy with a whip and another guy with a fucking latex fucking thing. And he's what the gays call a bear. Big, stocky, hairy dude that likes to dominate other dudes. So I'm on the plane, I'm killing time, and I'm watched a few movies, and then I had this Berlitz book on French. Now I had a word of French, and I'd only studied Spanish briefly in school, so I had no French whatsoever. And the guy, it was a 9-hour flight, about 7 hours in, the guy starts talking to me, and you know, he kind of takes the book off me and he starts asking me questions out of the book, you know, and then I'd answer the question back in French, and he'd ask, and he didn't speak any English. Then it started getting a bit like odd, like, would you like to go for dinner? And I just thought, well, obviously you're limited to the questions you can ask, you know? So I was like, yeah, that'd be nice. And it was just one of these backwards and forwards. And then it went quiet for a while, and I felt this thing running up the back of me calf, and then I realised it was his foot. And I jumped up, like, what the fuck, didn't know what to do. Got off the plane, and he kind of like hung around me, and I told him like where we were staying and what we're doing, the name of the town, Monolo. And he started carrying me bags off the carousel for me, and then Jules was there to meet me with some guy. And I think when he saw Jules, he just kind of like bounced. Anyway, Jules was here with this dude, and he said, look, shake this guy's hand. Shook his hand, went to the car. We're 2 hours late, and flight was delayed. And we got in, and we're in the back of the car, and I said to Jules, is this the team manager? Who's this guy? He goes, look, I don't know who he is. He's like, for some reason there was a funeral on, and the 2 cars, team cars, weren't available. And this guy, I just walked out of the house, and there was a guy there, and I said, hey, listen, there's one of the guys coming in from Ireland, can you give me a lift? Didn't know who the guy was, picked us up, dropped us to the gaff, and we never saw him again. And that's pretty much what Guadeloupe was like. Really, really good people that would do anything for you. And Julian was a bit of a god there. Everybody knew him. And he had this kind of like, I suppose in Ireland they had this bad boy image he was a bit odd. So he had this image of this kind of bad boy, a bit weird dude that didn't really talk to anybody in cycling. Had Lycra before anyone had Lycra. Yeah, and it was just one of those kind of, he was just kind of like aloof type of guy. But in Guadeloupe, he was this hilarious, funny guy that told jokes all the time. They used to interview him, and he spoke French. And he was just this different character, you know. So everywhere we went, everyone knew who he was, because the race was the biggest thing on the island, was cycling. Everyone was into it. So it was live on 2 radio stations. It was on the TV that night, and it would be front page of the paper on the Monday. And he'd won a bunch of races before I got there. Plus it was his second year. And it was just like, it was the first taste of kind of like semi-stardom that I had, because we used to race for the town, represent the town, and we were the only 2 white boys that raced in the island. So we got a lot of recognition straight off the bat, you know. But it was one of the most amazing experiences I had. I suppose it threw me into the deep end. I learned French in 6 weeks, because Julian was there for 6 weeks. I remember saying, we went out the first night and everyone's talking French, and he's talking French, and I hadn't a fucking word. I kept saying, what are you saying? And he said, look, if it's important, you'll find out. And I've always remembered that. It's one of those ones that I stick with on the daily. If it's important, you'll find out. But it was just, it really shaped me, because the last 6 weeks I was on my own, and then I used to memorise little conversations. I would start the conversation, because most conversations you have with people are conversations. You know, you meet someone in the street, you talk to them, and you're like, yeah. You're just agreeing with that they're saying, you're waiting for the pause to jump in. And they're just like beer talk. There's nothing in them, really, you know. They're not like a debating thing where it's like, well, I don't actually agree with that. I think it's more like this. You know, they're always yes conversations. So I would lead the conversation to look like I spoke French. But it was, there was no internet, no mobiles. You sent a letter. It took 2 weeks to get back. And if someone wrote that day, you'd get a letter in 4 weeks. It was just, it was one of those things that shaped me. It just made me independent and figure things out and just become a man, I suppose. And like at 19, I was still kind of fairly sheltered, you know. Actually, you know, about 4 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks in, that gay guy off the plane showed up at the gaff. Looking for me. Yeah, fuck's sake. I got into a fight as well, which was kind of, because we were really well respected in the town. I mean, in the morning or in the afternoon, we would go to the children's school, the kids' school. We go in, we'd be swarmed by all the kids. Everyone knew who we were. Went in. They'd bring us into the kitchen for the school, because they made meals, and they would feed us. So you'd come in, and all the plates, they were all steel plates, you know, and one on top of the other. So you'd never know what you were going to get. It could be a fucking plate of beans and rice or whatever, curried goat, sliced. You know, well, I remember one time we got a whole plate of cucumber, and then the lad that worked there would bring us into the storeroom, and then we could take whatever we wanted. The team would bring us to the supermarket and fill up the trolley once a week, and then they would pay us every week $60 plus the money for racing was huge. I remember one time I got 10th in a race, I got 100 quid. It's just like phenomenal money. And the president of the bike team, Stefan Gamma, or as I like to call him, President Gamma. And everywhere we went, he was referred to as President Gamma. But it was brilliant. Every Monday night there was a meeting, and we stayed in this house that was like the team house. It was basically 2 bedrooms, a sitting room and a kitchen, and there was fuck all in it really, just tiles, no glass in the windows, 32 degrees at night, 35 during the day, humidity 100%, rained all the time, and then just dry up real instantly, just sweating all the time, full of insects at night, lizards, land crabs, cockroaches, fucking flying bugs, everything. But it was one of the best experiences I ever had of travel, just because of how nice the people were. The fight I got into was, I was leaving and everyone knew I was leaving, so I decided to wash all my jerseys and shorts before I left, and I had them hanging up. And about one night, 4 juniors were under 18, around 17, these lads 17, 18, came around to the gaff, and they were acting the mick a little bit, you know what I mean? And I said, what the fuck are these at? So they all started kind of joking, blah, blah, blah. And they were saying stuff in, there's a native language, Creole, that is kind of like, it's the original native language that they have that's not French, and I wouldn't understand what they were talking. It's like going to Ireland and people speaking Irish. A lot of people wouldn't know what the fuck you were saying if you were in the west of Ireland or whatever. So these lads started speaking in Creole, and they left. And when they left, I went out to get my gear, and fucking half the shit was missing. And I was like, what the fuck, these cunts are out to stealing my gear. So the next morning, I went around to their houses to see if the stuff was hanging up, on the line or whatever. It wasn't. And there was a handball match on that night in the town. And handball is like, you throw the ball into the net. It's a big thing here, actually. So, I see the 4 boys. So I go over to them and say, where's my stuff? And they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. I said, you fucking do. And they said, we don't. And I used to wear a chain at the time, an earring. So I took out my chain earring before I went over. And I picked the guy who was around the same build size as me. And I took the front wheel off his bike and I said, look, you can have that back when you give me my stuff back. And then he went to take the front wheel off my bike. And when he did that, I kneed him in the face. And then it just all kicked off. Big meal, me and him. And then the crowd, because I was so well known and well respected in the town, because we rode for the bike team, and it was the guest, the whole fucking place just kicked off. And I don't know how many 100 people were at the game. Everyone in the town goes to whatever's on. Match stopped, everyone jumps in. We got kind of broken up, and every now and then we would be held back, and he'd get free, and then he'd tee off on me, and I wasn't able to get out, and it was just this like constant backward and forward to eventually got broken up, and I cycled home. My face was all banged up, big fucking swollen face, and he got a good few clean shots in now. So I had a headache the whole night. Woke up the next morning and I went to meet the treasurer of the bike team, because I was getting my money from you got your money for the prize winning that you got in the races, and I went home with 800 quid, and I went to see this guy. My face was all banged up, and he was a sergeant in the police station. And he said, what happened? I said, told him what happened, and he was like, that can't happen. When I was cycling back up to the gaff, I see one of them coming out of the house, and the fuck's he have to be in that? All my stuff was left back outside the fucking house. Those guys were thrown out of the bike team. They were never let race for any other bike team. The next year I went back, there was an old lady came into the house, I don't know who she was, and she said, the thief got his comeuppance. He died last year in a motorcycle crash. You just wrote the fucking jersey and gave it back, but they just didn't tolerate it there. Just genuinely nice people, and if you didn't do anything wrong, it always left a good memory with me, that if I hadn't have quit the job, if I hadn't have giving it a go instead of making excuses and keeping the job because it was secure and it was a nice job and all this kind of shit. You had money coming in, but I had this dream of riding a tour. Like I say, it didn't get there, but it didn't matter. It was the process. It was the stuff that I learned along the way. It was the people that I met along the way. It was learning a new language. It was learning a new culture. It was seeing how other people did things. It was like being on your own. It was like figuring it out. It was all that stuff is what made me who I was. And if you have a dream, or if you have something that you want to do, just do it. Because here's the other thing: ask yourself this: how long would it take you to go back to where you were? Not fucking long. Not fucking long. I could have just come back, got another job. Probably they would have give me another job. Well, they probably wouldn't. But I would have just walked into somewhere else and started again. And that's it. And whereas when you don't have the kind of the courage to take a chance, what's the worst that can happen? I don't have a job for a couple of weeks. I get a fucking job, and that's it. I mean, yeah, it was one of those things. And like I said, I went back the year after, and then that got us going to Dakar and Senegal and all that shit. And it was just like, it really kind of made me who I am. On an opposite, not an opposite thing, I deleted my social media. About 3 weeks ago, Facebook and Instagram, I deleted the two of them. One is, well, it wasn't serving me. I was spending too much time on it, and like, there's addiction tendencies there where you're missing the picture. It's like when I used to video a lot of stuff for the Mac Life. I looked through a lens all the time and I missed what was going on. And sometimes it's like that, you're hiding behind the camera. Same with you're hiding behind the phone, and you're just constantly looking for that little, how many people like that? How many people saw? Even though you say you don't, you fucking do. So I deleted them. And it was hard to delete it. You can't do it on your phone, you gotta do it on the web, you gotta do it on your computer, right? And then I found out that it actually wasn't deleted, even though I'd gone through the whole process. I was still getting messages for my birthday on Messenger. I was like, how the fuck people know it's my birthday? I'm on Facebook. Checked it was on, got rid of it. And then Instagram as well. Someone, Jeff, sent me a link to a time lapse I did of the stars, and Starlink is in it, Elon Musk's thing. And I said, where'd you get that? You got it off your thing. So I checked it online, and there it was. So I deleted it today. And the other reason was there was a lot of people sending me private messages on Instagram, wanting me to help them in whatever shape or form. And I'm not here to help you. I'm here to tell you, you got to help your fucking self. And that's the fucking truth. Because if somebody always helps you, you're never going to fucking learn. If shit's bad for you, and you want to get out of there fast, you're never going to learn. You got to push into the sharp edges. You got to get uncomfortable. Get comfortable in the uncomfortable, as they say in jiu-jitsu. There is no growth in comfort. None. So the only advice I can give you, if you want my advice, or if you think of anything to offer in that fact, because I've lived a life, is figure it out. Stay in the game. Get a pen, get a paper, write down your 100 goals, cut it to 50, cut it to 20, cut it to 10, cut it to 5, and do that. Courtesy of Mr. Joe Hoey. 24 minutes. That is all. I gotta get this quicker, right? We are all one. Do you like the outfit, by the way? So it's kind of like skinhead, isn't it? Yeah, it is skinhead. Tight jeans, check shirt, braces. Skinhead is not a political point of view. It's a fashion. It's a music. It's It's an expression. Don't get it confused. We are all one. Harikrishna. Namaste. #Rafter. Rafter.